If you're ready for a story that will change the way you look at humanity forever, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me what you'd do if you came face to face with the galaxy's deadliest predator, and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this saga. Now, let's begin. The council chamber had been built to intimidate. 37 species sat in tiered arcs of alloy and crystal, each podium bathed in pale blue light. Their languages hissed, clicked, and rumbled over one another, a constant undercurrent of tension. Security drones hovered at the edges like silent executioners. At the center of it all was a single metal platform, empty for now, but stained with the memories of countless trials. Commander Elias Cross stood at Earth's delegation podium, hands clasped behind his back. The cut of his uniform was precise, but the man himself was not decorative. Tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying the faint, restless energy of someone who'd seen combat too many times, Elias scanned the chamber with the unblinking patience of a soldier who knew the next moment might decide everything. The chamber doors groaned open. A ripple of unease rolled through the delegates, each alien's posture shifting, some leaning away, others bristling with spines or extending protective frills. The security drones drifted closer. Chains clinked against the floor. It entered. The creature was nearly 3 meters from muzzle to tail, its shoulders rolling with the muscular precision of a born killer. Fur black as void swallowed the light, and two eyes like molten gold scanned the room with quiet contempt. The Varkon Prime Predator. The war beast of nightmare legends. Every delegate here had heard stories, villages emptied in a single night, hunters never returning, armored vehicles found torn open as if by some impossible force. Today one of them was here. Enchained. It padded to the platform, chains rattling against its forelimbs. Its breath was slow, steady, but there was an unmistakable coiled violence in the way it moved. The scent of iron and ozone followed it. Elias didn't flinch. From the council's highest tier, Chairwoman Lyrat of the Heshtheri clicked her mandibles sharply. "Human representative," she said, voice cold and segmented, "you will explain why this abomination has been brought into the council's presence." Elias kept his gaze on the predator. "You called it an abomination," he said evenly. "I call it evidence." A collective hiss rolled through the chamber. Several delegates activated translation runes to ensure they'd heard correctly. Lyrat's tone dropped to something dangerous. "Evidence of what? That humans now collect war beasts as trophies? Or that you intend to unleash them as weapons?" The predator turned its head, and its eyes locked on Elias. The shift was sudden. Predators didn't look at prey this way. Its ears flattened slightly, and its tail gave a slow, sweeping motion across the metal floor. Then came the sound. Oh, resonant. A rolling vibration that traveled through the platform and into the bones of every living being present. A rumble not of anger, but of contentment. It was purring. Delegates recoiled in disbelief. A Salothi ambassador's fronds curled tightly against its body. One of the Creel representatives muttered something about sacrilege. The sound itself seemed to mock the chamber's tension, a predator in the very heart of the galaxy's highest authority acting as if it were curled beside a fire. Elias stepped forward from his podium. His boots echoed on the chamber floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. The security drones rotated toward him in unison. "I wouldn't," warned a guard from the Talon detail, its voice a guttural rasp. Elias ignored them. He approached the predator slowly, each step deliberate. His expression didn't change, but there was something in his eyes, a recognition. When he was close enough that the heat of the predator's breath touched his skin, he crouched. His gloved hand rose, paused for a fraction of a second, then made contact with the creature's muzzle. The predator leaned into his touch. The purring deepened, filling the air like the hum of an approaching storm. Chaos broke loose. Delegates shouted in overlapping languages, several calling for emergency evacuation protocols. A blue flare of security energy sizzled in the air as one drone primed a containment field. Lyrat slammed her staff against the crystalline dais. "Human, remove yourself from that creature at once." Elias glanced up at her, still resting his hand against the predator's jaw. "With respect, Chairwoman, it's not a creature." "Not to me." Lyrat's eyes narrowed. "Then to what?" "A pet." Elias's mouth twitched in something not quite a smile. "To an old friend." The chamber went silent again. Somewhere in the upper tiers, an interpreter drone clicked as it replayed the translation. "Old friend." Lyrat's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "Explain." "Not here." "Not yet," Elias said. "You wouldn't believe me if I did." The predator blinked slowly, still leaning into his touch. Around its neck, The heavy chain seemed almost ornamental now, a thin pretense that this being was contained. Elias rose to his full height, the predator's head following his movement like a shadow. You want the truth? Give me time to prove it. Lyrat's mandibles clicked sharply. Time? You have no standing to demand anything here, human. Then make it an order, Elias replied. Order me to prove this predator is no threat to the council. The room erupted again, this time in furious debate. Some delegates shouted for immediate termination of the beast, citing safety protocols. Others demanded to know how a human could approach it without being mauled. The translation overlay struggled to keep up with the din. Elias waited, motionless, while the predator stood beside him, its body relaxed, its golden eyes never leaving his face. Finally, Lyrat raised her staff once more. The chamber's sound dampeners kicked in, muting all but her voice. 72 hours, she said. You will present irrefutable proof that this relationship does not endanger the council. If you fail, both you and the predator will be destroyed. Elias inclined his head. Understood. The predator gave one final deep purr before turning its gaze to the chamber's tiers, as if daring any being present to challenge the arrangement. Elias stepped back toward his podium, the predator's chain scraping against the floor behind it. For the first time since the trial began, he allowed himself the smallest, most dangerous smile. One that promised the council they were about to learn just how much they didn't know about humans. And if they were lucky, they'd survive the lesson. The council chamber emptied in fragments, delegates breaking into cliques of hurried whispers and wary glances. The predator was led away under heavy guard, its golden eyes tracking Elias until the last possible moment. Every step it took was silent, deliberate, a reminder to everyone watching that the chains it wore were less about security and more about theater. Elias remained in his seat until the chamber was nearly empty. His comm bead vibrated twice, an encrypted call. He accepted without a word. You've got about 39 seconds before the chairwoman's aides start watching you like hawks, said Dr. Adrian Voss's voice in his ear. Care to explain why you were petting a death machine in the middle of the most politically sensitive room in the galaxy? I wasn't petting it, Elias said. I was making contact. You were making everyone else's hearts stop, Adrian replied dryly. Come to Lab 6. Now. The connection cut. Elias walked the upper corridors of the council complex, his pace steady. The glass walls offered a dizzying view of the station's interior city, tiered platforms, hanging gardens fed by artificial suns, and streams of shuttles weaving between docking bays. The place was meant to feel like civilization's pinnacle. To Elias it felt like a cage where every wall was lined with knives. Lab 6 was sealed under 3 levels of biometric locks. Inside, Adrian stood over a circular display table, his sharp features lit by the blue projection of a creature's anatomy. He was shorter than Elias, lean but wiry, his dark hair streaked at the temples. His coat was open, revealing a utility belt crammed with tools and scanners. You've been holding out on me, Adrian said without looking up. I didn't know I'd see it again, Elias replied. Adrian rotated the hologram. The predator's skeleton was overlaid with vascular patterns and heat signatures. Do you realize what you've just done? That thing is supposed to be impossible to approach without getting your head bitten off. The council thinks humans are either suicidal or planning something. Elias stepped closer. Years ago, on a covert extraction op, I found one of these. Smaller. Barely old enough to hunt. It was trapped in a collapsed tunnel. I freed it. You let it live? I didn't think it would survive, Elias said. But it didn't run. It followed me for hours until I hit evac. Then it was gone. Adrian finally looked up. And you think this is the same one? I don't think. I know. Before Adrian could reply, an alarm trilled in the lab, a perimeter breach warning. Elias's hand went to the sidearm at his hip. A live feed appeared on the nearest screen, the predators holding bay. 4 council guards were down. A 5th stumbled back from the platform, weapon clattering from their grasp. A shadow moved in the frame, fast, low, purposeful. Then the attacker came into view. Not the predator. A figure in segmented armor, movements efficient and brutal. They carried a short blade slick with dark fluid, alien blood. The predator was behind them, tail lashing. The attacker spun, striking toward Elias's view. The predator moved. It was almost too fast for the camera. One instant still, the next a blur of black muscle and gold eyes. Its paw hit the attacker's arm, claws stopping short of flesh, then wrenched the blade free and sent it skidding across the floor. The predator stepped between the attacker and the downed guard, shoulders squared, ears flat, a low growl vibrating the camera feed. Security reinforcements swarmed in, wrestling the attacker down. The predator didn't move except to keep its body between the threat and the injured. The feed cut. Adrian exhaled slowly. It just protected a council guard. They won't care, Elias said. They'll think it's a trick. They'd be idiots not to. They're politicians, Elias interrupted. Idiots are a given. Adrian's mouth twisted into a grimace. Then we have 71 hours to prove the universe's deadliest predator is a better ally than half the people in that chamber. The door chimed. 2 council security officers entered, flanking chairwoman Lyrat herself. Her posture was rigid, every joint clicking faintly with the motion of her exoskeleton. Commander Cross, she said without preamble, your companion has just complicated matters. It saved a guard's life, Elias said. It chose not to kill, Lyrat corrected. Do not confuse the two. The council's patience is fraying. Then let me prove what it is, Elias said. Lyrat's compound eyes locked on him. You will be given access to the predator for the remainder of your trial period. But understand this, should it harm even one delegate it will die. And so will you. I understand. She turned, her guards following. At the door she paused. I do not know what game you play, human, but I advise you to remember, you are in a chamber of wolves. And you have brought in a lion. When they were gone, Adrian let out a breath. 71 hours. Elias's gaze was already distant. Then we start now. They entered the predator's holding bay 30 minutes later. The guards at the door stiffened but let them through. Inside, the predator lay on its haunches, chains slack, eyes half-lidded but alert. Its ears flicked as they approached. Elias knelt without hesitation. The purr came immediately, rolling through the room. All right, old friend, Elias murmured. Let's show them who you really are. The predator's tail swept the floor once, slow and deliberate as if it understood. Somewhere deep in its chest, the purr deepened, and Adrian, watching from behind the safety field, realized something unsettling. Elias wasn't controlling the predator. They were moving together as if each could read the other's next thought. In the corner of the bay, a camera drone watched silently. The feed was live to the council's archives. Every second from here on out would be scrutinized. Elias looked up at it, the faintest smirk on his lips. Keep watching, he said. You wanted proof, you're going to get it. The predator's golden eyes followed his gaze, and for the first time in centuries of council history, it looked as though the galaxy's apex predator and one stubborn human were about to stand trial together, not for a crime but for the right to change everything. The first day passed in a blur of observation and testing. Adrian's lab became an improvised arena for controlled trials, each designed to show the predator's capacity for restraint. They started simple. Objects placed at varying distances, commands delivered through hand signals Elias had improvised years ago. To Adrian's surprise, the predator responded to nearly all of them, its movements precise, deliberate, never breaking eye contact with Elias until the task was complete. The council's monitoring drones hovered at the edges of the bay, recording every moment. Elias ignored them. He spoke to the predator in a low, even tone, sometimes in standard, sometimes in clipped military slang that meant nothing to the drones but seemed to draw sharp reactions from the beast, ears perking, tail flicking, body shifting with purpose. By the end of the first 12 hours, the predator had demonstrated object retrieval, pressure-controlled restraint on a target dummy, and the ability to navigate an obstacle course without toppling fragile crystal pillars deliberately placed in its path. The footage was good. Too good, Elias suspected. It wouldn't be enough. That night, in the quiet of the holding bay after the guards rotated out, Adrian lingered by the observation glass. It's not just following orders, he murmured. It's anticipating them. That means higher cognitive function than any of the council's databases claim. It's not in it, Elias replied. Adrian shot him a sideways glance. You gave it a name yet? Not officially. The predator rose from where it had been lying and padded toward Elias, silent on the metal floor. It settled beside him, pressing its shoulder against his leg with a weight that was both grounding and impossibly heavy. The purr began again, low and steady, reverberating through the room. You're certain it's the same one from your mission? Adrian asked. Elias nodded. There's a scar on its left flank. Old blaster wound. I treated it in the field with nothing but field gel and a ration pack wrapper. That kind of thing leaves a mark. Adrian's expression shifted from skepticism to something closer to wonder. You realize what this could mean? If its species had prior contact with humans, or human-like beings, before the council ever catalogued them. Elias looked at him sharply. What do you mean before the council catalogued them? Adrian hesitated, then tapped a command into his datapad. A series of glyphs and images filled the screen, faded stone carvings, star maps, and depictions of a humanoid figure standing beside a large feline-like creature. These came from the Varkon ruins, Adrian explained. The council dismissed them as symbolic, but I've been looking at the scale ratios. These things, your friend here, they've been domesticated before. Just not by anyone still alive to talk about it. Elias studied the carvings. The humanoids depicted weren't human exactly, but close enough to trigger a pang of familiarity. So it's instinct, he said. Some buried memory telling it humans are safe. Or, Adrian countered, some buried memory telling it humans are family. Before Elias could answer, the bay lights shifted from white to amber, external alert. A moment later, a voice crackled over the station's public channel. Security to Central Promenade. Unverified incident in progress. Elias and Adrian exchanged a glance. The predator rose to its feet without a sound, muscles tense. An hour later, the incident was all over the council's private feeds. Someone had leaked a compilation of old footage, grainy, brutal clips from Varkon Prime showing predators tearing through mercenary lines, dragging armored enemies into the dark, leaving only wreckage and blood behind. The commentary overlay was slick, polished, and damning. The source was untraceable, but Elias didn't need to guess. The voiceover belonged to Counselor Dravin of the Thessari, a long-standing opponent of human expansion. In the final frame, Dravin's image replaced the footage, his tendrils coiled in a show of controlled outrage. And now the humans bring one here, he intoned. To sit beside us. To breathe the same air. Are we mad? By morning, the tide in the council chamber had turned. Supporters from neutral factions had gone silent, and the predators holding bay was under twice as much guard. Adrian slammed a report down on the lab table. If we don't counter this, the trial's over before it starts. They're already calling it a weapon. Elias leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the predator pace behind the security field. Then we make them see it's more than that. How? Show them what it protects, Elias said. That night, Elias stayed in the bay past curfew. He sat on the floor beside the predator, the chain slack between its forelimbs. In the stillness he spoke, not orders, not strategy, but fragments of memory. Missions gone wrong. Friends buried on nameless worlds. Choices that left scars deeper than the blaster wound on the predator's flank. It didn't respond with understanding words. How could it? But when his voice faltered, the predator's massive head lowered onto his lap. The purr began again, slow and steady, the sound of a heart that recognized another's pain. Somewhere above them, a monitoring drone floated, its feed live to the council archives. Anyone watching would see a soldier and a predator, not in dominance, not in fear, but in quiet, mutual trust. When the lights flickered, Elias's instincts kicked in. Power loss. He was on his feet in seconds, scanning the bay. Then the alarm started. Not the general station tone, this was sharper, localized. Security breach in the council's central core. The predator's ears snapped forward. Its body went rigid, head turning toward the sealed door as if it could see through the bulkhead. A low growl rumbled in its chest, and Elias knew before the first distant explosion echoed that the council was under attack. The predator stepped forward, chains taut, golden eyes burning. Elias unhooked the quick release on its restraints without hesitation. The metal links fell away, clattering on the floor. Let's go, he said. It didn't need to be told twice. The corridor outside the holding bay was a flicker of red emergency lights and the distant thud of boots on metal. Smoke curled from somewhere deeper in the station, the tang of scorched alloy in the air. Elias moved quickly, the predator keeping pace beside him, its body low, muscles coiled like a drawn bow. They passed two downed guards, alive but unconscious, blaster fire scoring the walls around them. Adrian's voice cut through the calm beat, sharp with urgency. Elias, Central Chambers under siege. Armed group, not council security. They've got Dravin in their pocket, I'd bet my license on it. If they get to the chairwoman, the whole thing collapses. We're on our way, Elias replied. You and the thing? Yes. There was a pause. Then try to leave enough of them alive for questioning. They reached the main atrium just as the fighting crested. A squad of armored mercenaries was forcing their way through the grand entry, firing into the mezzanine where a cluster of delegates was pinned down. The predator didn't wait for orders. It surged forward in a blur of black, weaving through cover with impossible speed. One merc spun to track it and found his weapon wrenched from his grip. His helmet slammed into the wall with just enough force to drop him without killing. Elias moved in behind it, using the chaos it created to flank the attackers. Two went down to precision shots, another to a tackle from the predator that ended with the mercenary sprawled, breathing but out cold. Across the atrium, the chairwoman was being herded by two mercs toward a service lift. Elias shouted, drawing their attention for a split second. Enough for the predator to leap the gap between platforms, claws hooking the railing, momentum carrying it into both kidnappers at once. They went down in a tangle of limbs and armor, the predator looming over them, a low growl freezing them in place until security forces swarmed in to take them. The sound of battle began to fade, replaced by the hiss of venting systems and the low murmur of shaken voices. Elias turned, scanning for further threats. None came. The predator stood in the center of the atrium, its fur streaked with dust and carbon scoring, golden eyes sweeping the chamber like a sentry. The chairwoman stepped forward, her expression unreadable. Around them, delegates whispered in their own tongues, none daring to interrupt. Lyra's gaze moved from Elias to the predator, then back again. "You released it," she said, not a question. "I trusted it," Elias answered. "And it chose to protect," she murmured. She turned to the assembly. "You all saw what I saw. The galaxy's deadliest predator did not bow to fear, did not give in to its nature. It defended this council with more discipline than some of our own." There was a ripple through the crowd, not quite applause but something shifting, fear bleeding into a wary respect. Draven, still flanked by his guards, spoke up from the edge of the chamber. "A convenient display, human. How do we know you didn't engineer this entire incident?" Elias stepped closer, voice low but carrying. "Because if I had, you wouldn't still be standing." Draven's tendrils tightened in anger, but he said nothing further. Lyra raised her staff, bringing the chamber to order. "This matter is closed. The predator will be granted protected status under the direct guardianship of Commander Elias Cross. Let it be recorded that on this day, the council was defended not by walls, not by protocol but by trust." Elias inclined his head. The predator stepped forward, brushing against his side. It was purring again, the sound rolling through the stillness like distant thunder. Hours later, the station had quieted. Elias stood in the small quarters assigned to him, the predator stretched out on the floor like a living shadow. Adrian leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "You realize you've just become the galaxy's strangest ambassador?" "I've been called worse," Elias said. Adrian's gaze shifted to the predator. "So, what now? You take it home? Teach it to fetch slippers?" Elias smirked. "I was thinking more along the lines of keeping it close. Let it sleep at the foot of my bed. Maybe make the galaxy wonder what else humans can befriend." The predator's tail swept the floor, slow and deliberate as if agreeing. The purr deepened, filling the room with that strange, resonant calm. Outside, the stars drifted past in silence, and for the first time in days, Elias allowed himself to believe the council might just learn something new. About fear, about trust, and about the impossible things humans seemed able to do. Somewhere far below, the council archives logged the final entry of the day. The deadliest predator in the known galaxy had chosen its place. And it was beside a human. 3 days after the siege, the station's scars were still visible. Scorched plating along the council atrium had yet to be replaced, and entire sectors remained sealed for repairs. Yet the predator's presence had become an unspoken fixture. Delegates who once recoiled now gave it a wide berth, born less of fear and more of wary respect. Elias walked the quieter upper corridors with the predator padding beside him, its tail swaying in an easy rhythm. Adrian followed a few paces back, datapad in hand, muttering about needing better medical facilities if this arrangement was going to be permanent. For the first time since his arrival, Elias allowed himself to believe they might actually be safe. The moment shattered with the sound of distant weapons fire. Elias's hand went to his sidearm before the second burst echoed down the hall. The predator froze, head lifting, ears angling toward the sound. Its body went tense. Adrian glanced up sharply. "That's coming from the docking ring." They moved fast, cutting through side passages until the main viewport came into view. Out in the void, a sleek black-painted Corvette clamped against the docking ring, hull markings wiped clean, pirate work. Through the glass, Elias saw flashes of movement, the muzzle flares of weapons in the station's outer corridor. Security teams were already forming up, but Elias's calm beat crackled with a voice he didn't recognize. "Commander Cross, you have something that belongs to us. Send it to Dock 6, unchained, or we start killing delegates." Elias slowed, jaw tightening. Who is this? The voice chuckled. Let's just say we're old friends of Varkon Prime. And we've been paid very well to bring your little pet home. The predator's head turned toward him as if sensing the words meant danger. Elias cut the channel and turned to Adrian. Get to the council chamber. Lock it down. What about you? I'm going to make sure they don't get anywhere near it. But the predator was already moving, slipping ahead of him toward the docking ring with silent, deadly speed. Elias swore under his breath and followed. The outer corridor was chaos, mercenaries in dark armor advancing in formation, station guards falling back under the withering fire. The predator hit them like a black storm, its body a blur, claws flashing as it tore weapons from grips and sent attackers sprawling. It didn't kill, but every strike was decisive, disabling limbs, knocking helmets into bulkheads hard enough to drop targets cold. Elias flanked them, firing precise bursts that dropped two more before they could regroup. But the enemy was organized, too organized. They weren't just here for a fight. From the corner of his vision, Elias saw two mercs break away, sprinting toward the predator with a weighted net launcher. He shouted, but the weapon fired, wide mesh, electrified strands meant to incapacitate without killing. The predator didn't dodge. It leapt. The net missed entirely, crackling uselessly against the wall as the beast slammed into both attackers, sending them skidding across the deck. The purr was gone now, its growl a rolling thunder that filled the corridor. More mercs poured in from the corvette's side hatch. The leader stepped forward, a tall figure in segmented black, visor glinting under the emergency lights. Stand down, human. You can walk away. Elias took one step forward, the predator mirroring him. That's not happening. The leader tilted their head. Then you'll both die here. The next exchange was brutal. Blaster fire lit the corridor in strobing bursts, each report echoing against the metal walls. Elias dropped to one knee, firing up at an advancing merc just as the predator vaulted over him, slamming into the leader with bone-rattling force. The impact drove them both to the floor, the predator's weight pinning the figure as claws pressed just hard enough against their chest plate to make the armor creak. The leader froze. The fight around them faltered as mercs hesitated, unwilling to fire with their commander under the predator's paw. Elias rose slowly, weapon still aimed. You've got one chance. Leave and you live. Silence stretched. Then the leader's helmet turned toward the predator's golden eyes and something in their posture broke. They gestured sharply, and the remaining mercs began to fall back toward the corvette. The predator stepped off, but only just, watching them retreat until the hatch sealed and the pirate vessel detached, vanishing into the black with a short burn. The corridor smelled of ozone and sweat. Station guards began the slow process of clearing weapons and checking the wounded. Elias reached down, resting his hand against the predator's head. The growl faded, replaced by that familiar, deep purr. Adrian arrived minutes later, breathless. You're impossible, you know that? Elias gave a faint smile. It's not me they're afraid of. In the days that followed, word spread. Not just of the Council's survival, but of the human who walked with the galaxy's most feared predator at his side, and the fact that, twice now, it had chosen to defend rather than destroy. On the final night before his scheduled departure from the station, Elias sat in his quarters with the predator curled near the bed. Adrian leaned in the doorway, watching the slow rise and fall of its breathing. So, where to next? Elias glanced down at the massive black form beside him. Somewhere quiet. For now. But when the next fight comes? He let the thought hang, running his hand over the predator's fur. We'll be ready. The predator's tail swept the floor, its purr deepening into something that felt less like contentment and more like promise. Outside, the stars wheeled silently past, oblivious to the fact that somewhere in their vast expanse, a man and a beast had just rewritten the meaning of trust. And in the dark, Elias knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it together.